All right, everybody. So you are seeing the depopulation agenda completely in its full force. The selling of the perceptions as far as enemies out there in different countries. I mean, you're seeing Fox News talk about Iran and China and all these different talks that haven't been going well, or who knows what. And then you're seeing on CNN how they're still playing up the whole virus and testing positive, and as if testing positive really, is a bad thing. No, it's not, because the whole testing, they've been talking about how testing really isn't surefire. It's not really any accuracy, because you can test negative tomorrow and test positive the next day, or you can test negative today and test positive tomorrow. It just depends on your biochemistry and who you've been exposed to, and then your biochemistry again. So they've been saying that you can't really rely on tests. Testing for COVID doesn't really make a difference. What they're doing when they're testing for COVID is taking your DNA, and those that test positive, well, then those antibodies that they stole from you, when you think about it, even though you gave them permission, they are being used as antibodies in the vaccines as well as for prescription drugs. Okay, so they're monoclonal antibodies, and those antibodies can be bioengineered. Of course they are. Antigen is also bioengineered, because you can program anything in your environment to be a weapon against the body, to basically induce antibodies. So if there's like a protein, let's say like a peanut protein, that they want your body to react to, well, maybe your mom or your dad or you don't eat a bunch of peanuts, right? And you have this antibody that attacks peanut proteins. Well, one day, one day your immune system is weak, and you don't have a lot of healing going on, because there's two sides to your immune system. There's the death side and there's the life side. The death side are the antibodies, and the life side are the prostaglandins. As you get older, when you've been exposed to so many things in your environment, such as antibodies that have been programmed to go after food proteins and whatever proteins, if you were to eat a bunch of nuts or peanuts and you still have that antibody protein, that your immune system is weak, it can't fight against these peanut proteins or whatever, then the antibodies become induced. So that's why some people have food allergies latent down the road, not so much right off the bat. So people are like, well, I was never allergic to fish, and now I'm allergic to fish. Well, what was it about the fish that you weren't allergic to earlier on, but you were exposed to that antibody? Well, you have two sides to your immune system. You have the life side, where you have the prostaglandin healing, and then you have the death side, which is the antibodies. When the life side, which is, when you're younger, relatively younger, and you're relatively healthy, then your prostaglandins, your healing process is so much stronger. It's able to counter the death sides, counter the antibodies that are swimming around trying to attack you at the micro level. And so what happens as you get older and you're not doing J-juice, then the antibodies, the death programming starts kicking in. That's when you have the antibody accumulation. Okay? And so this thing with the COVID is that you're seeing them play up this whole thing that viruses are something to be afraid of. People are dying. And yeah, people are dying. We have so many people that have major predispositions, of course. And whenever even prior to the COVID, it's any new virus in the environment, or anything in the environment that the body has created an immunity against. And the more that you've been exposed to that specific protein, let's say you have heart issues and you have cholesterol issues, okay? And so the more cholesterol you have in your body that's building up that you're not releasing, the more the body's gonna build up antibodies. So when you eat a food that your body can't handle because of the fact that you have a stagnated digestive system, immune system, whatever, people die from heart attacks and strokes because of their diet, because the fact that they have imbalances. And so anything in their environment, when they've been told that they have imbalances, they have deficiencies, they need to stay away from this food, that food, the other food. That's like in functional medicine and holistic medicine. And then someone then also eats that food, or they get exposed to a new virus or a new strain of the flu virus, especially around flu season because of flu shots, and then people are now congregating together in the homes, close quarters, because it's winter. That's when you're seeing people die from whatever. It doesn't matter, what they die from, because every single natural causes disease is based upon an antibody that tipped the scales in the body. That basically was the straw that broke the camel's back. And that's what antibodies do. So, but here's the thing, and the whole thing with the plain sight and the depopulation agenda is they're trying to sell you antibodies in the vaccines. They're trying to sell you antibodies in your prescription drugs. They're trying to sell you antivirals, antibiotics, anti-inflammatories to suppress the good part of your immune system. They're trying to sell you antimicrobials, antiparasitics. And you're seeing your friends in the holistic world doing the same thing. They're trying to sell you all the herbs so they can suppress your healing process. So that way more antibodies build up, more antibodies sustain. And then if, let's say, you're part of the holistic world, you're doing the saltwater flushes. Salt water is like a mirror. It's a reflection of your biochemistry. So if you're just doing saltwater flushes and you're not matching the salt with the Jilly juice, then the antibodies are very prevalent. They may be coming out, some of them, but you're still at a deficiency. You haven't rebuilt and regenerated, and so the body is now even more open or exposed to then more proteins coming in, causing more antibodies, and you are still being chipped away at the micro level. So even though with the salt water, all the different detoxes, which yes, they may give you a little bit of a relief for very temporary, then the body will still build up immunity against that, or I won't say immunity, but it will build up a tolerance, and then that's when the pain returns, that's when all these different things return. And so that's why, releasing antibodies with the different detoxes really actually induces more antibodies in other areas, releasing other antibodies, and so then the body is trying to live, pain returns, and then you're trying to, so it's just like it's like you're messing with your biochemistry. So that's why with the J juice, when you've been exposed to someone who has gotten the COVID-19 vaccine, and it may have the bioluminescence, I can't tell you if you will be able to see it through whatever instruments and devices the biotech has, if they want to check to see. And since you can't trust the different testing to give you an accurate result, because you can test positive today, test negative today or tomorrow, whatever. So there's no way to really know. If you were to actually get the vaccine and you have proof that you got the vaccine, it doesn't matter if they can test to see if you have those antibodies. Now, when you're doing the Jilly juice and you release the excess antibodies from the COVID-19 test, from Bill Gates's test, all I know is that you better keep that certificate that you have should be probably on your permanent record. But as far as being able to see it through a test, I don't know if they're going to adjust the algorithms in those titer tests. But I don't see them testing anybody if they've been vaccinated for that specific strain. Or they're going to have like a one-size-fits-all type of vaccine. Okay? And when you have a one-size-fits-all vaccine, that'll be like the ring that rules them all, the one that rules them all, whatever, the Lord of the Rings type of thing. And so really, where you're going to have to be home free, so you're not having to experience all these different tests to see if you have the antibody. Because that's what my husband is under the impression, that if he's been exposed to COVID, which he has, but we all have been exposed to COVID, if he gets an antibody test and they test him and he either tests negative today, but then he does another test, he'll test positive tomorrow, then they quarantine you, right? So if you don't show proof that you have a vaccination, you will be always going under some kind of test, because they're telling you that tests are not accurate. So the only way for them to know that you've been vaccinated or immunized is to actually get the vaccine. Or you're always constantly going to be triggering and rolling the dice of whether or not you're going to be quarantined that day. So if you're moving between different agencies, as far as buildings, or moving between different states, or going to different companies, and they're going to say, well, in order for you to be hired here, we want you to take an antibody test. if you don't want to take the vaccine. See, I don't think they're going to give you that option to be an anti-vax. I'm thinking that they're going to be making these vaccines mandatory. So you have to understand that the Jilly juice is really going to be your only savior, your only way that you'll be able to handle the new environment. Because I'm telling you, yeah, you're going to get affected by the vaccines that you'll be taking, as well as someone that's shedding. No matter what, you're going to be exposed to COVID vaccine. You're going to be exposed to that antibody that has bioluminescence. That is inevitably going to affect your biochemistry. But it doesn't have to affect your biochemistry adversely if you're able to release the excess and regenerate at the micro level. Because that's really all there is. You do any of the things out there in the holistic world, like the anti-parasitics, all the cannabis, all the different detoxes that are being offered, doing all the Rife machines, the energy healing, all of that is not going to help you when it comes down to it. Because what's going to happen is you'll be still exposed to the COVID-19 vaccine from the antibodies from people shedding, and you might even get the vaccine. But all of those antibiotic, holistic, allopathic remedies are only going to sustain the programming from that vaccine or your exposure to that vaccine from somebody else. And so you really have to be able to change your biochemistry to release the excess. There might be a residual footprint of those antibodies, but it's not going to affect you adversely. And that's what I really want my Jilly users to know about that, because they're not afraid of the vaccine or anyone vaccinated. Because the only way for you to fix your insides is if you actually use the nutrition. Because Jilly juice, and why Dr. Phil and all these different people are all against the salt, because salt is life. And when you have salt with the right constituents, not just salt in general, because salt matched with different things has different reactions. If you match salt with the Jilly juice, you will get a life-giving type of response to your body. Okay, but why the industry is overall in general is against the salt, because salt is life relative to what you pair it with. And if there's a huge depopulation and they are selling antibodies as a way to heal, salt's going to completely conflict with the antibodies. It's going to conflict with the antibody deception, because they're deceiving you and thinking that antibodies are the healing that's in the vaccines, that's in the prescription drugs, and then all your antibiotics are sustaining that programming. So Jilly juice actually counters the biological program, the biotechnical, biocultural programming that's in the holistic allopathic industry. Okay? And so it doesn't matter what, all these naysayers are saying, because they don't realize what antibodies are. When you look up what antibodies do, they actually punch holes in the cells. They destroy cells. And then you can actually program antigen to create antibodies in the body. So when you're saying that a peanut protein is antigen and that will then trigger antibodies, that is biotech programming and weaponizing food against your body. Because no one should be allergic to the food supply. The reason why you're allergic to the food supply is because you've been exposed to a weaponized antibody. It's not the formaldehyde, it's not the mercury. You're exposed to elements every single day and your body's able to filter them out correctly. It's the monoclonal antibodies. It's the monoclonal antibodies, and in these antivirals and in these therapeutics, these antibody therapeutics is what is destroying people. Okay? And so that's why it's so difficult for me to even penetrate the holistic world, because they don't understand the antibody deception. So, it really is the enemy within. The enemy, and I hate to call it that, but that's what it is weaponizing your own body's proteins against you by reprogramming your body to build up the death trajectory, not the life trajectory. Because remember, life and death are black and white. Okay? And the prostaglandins are life. That is what the salt expands. It helps expand and release the prostaglandin hormones. And then it brings blood into the dark areas of your life. So that's why I say it's probably possible to regrow limbs and organs even if you're born without them. But the fact that people do not want to feel pain is what stops people from actually seeing that come to fruition. And would somebody who is missing an arm and a leg and whatever withstand that kind of pain over a period of time? Well, they have to be hardcore understanding Jilly juice. They would have to be okay with dealing with pain almost every day until they regrew that arm or that leg. And can we ask anyone to just throw away the old programming and deal with pain the way, that they're trying to mitigate? And so I don't see anyone that is an amputee wanting to do the Jilly juice because it would be painful. I mean, the phantom pains are already happening. That's why they're probably taking their prescription drugs to deal with the pain as an amputee. And of course, as an amputee or missing specific organs and limbs and whatever, the prescription drugs are probably targeting those specific proteins. And so if they actually did Jilly juice, it would be painful. They would feel pain in whatever areas that they have amputations in. So, I mean, the only thing is to understand the science behind Jilly juice and why I have been attacked for so many years, why there's still campaigns against me, but I don't really care because the science is there. Antibody is anti your body. It's what Dr. Fauci is selling you. It's what Trump is selling you. It's what all of John Hopkins, Rockefeller medicine, the holistic world, okay? The allopathic, holistic, the alternative homeopathic, functional medicine, the programming that you should die at some point, the programming that that everyone does. Everyone gets cancer or some kind. Everyone it passed away. The programming of fasting, the program of discriminating against food. Why would you starve yourself? But that's the thing in the holistic world. It's all about, oh, don't eat any meat, don't eat any milk, don't eat any cheese. And so you are now starving yourself. And then with this thing with chemotherapy and the thing with the cannabis and all the different, juicing regimes. Oh yeah, juice all your fruits and vegetables, right? Become a vegan and vegetarian so you're starving yourself and you're juicing your food. You have leaky gut, which is basically the antibodies attacking you in your gut where you're not absorbing the nutrition. And of course, you're on a low sodium diet, so you got stagnancy. So you're stagnated, you're atrophying. As you get older, you're atrophying in body, mind, and spirit. Okay? Some of you are living off of, that's why, drug addicts, you wonder, how do drug addicts seem to outlive people who are not drug addicts? Because all that chemistry is kind of keeping the zombie alive. Okay? But there's one day where there's going to be an antibody that's going to be the last straw that broke that camel's back. And then they won't survive a heart attack. They won't survive a stroke. That's probably why overdoses happen. The opioid epidemic, that's why overdoses happen, because you already have antibodies from those drugs, from those opioids. And then you get exposed to a new virus that also induces antibodies. How many antibodies do you think your vital organs can take, especially when you have predispositions? You already have weaknesses in your vital organs. Whether it's neurologically, whether it's your heart, cardiovascular, your liver, your lungs, your kidneys. And of course, women with reproductive system. Last night, I'm still in my period. It's been a crazy period. I was not expecting my period at all because I should have gotten it like 3 weeks ago and I got it like the last couple of days. And at 3 o'clock in the morning, I felt pain last night. It was a weird pain last night. And so your healing process, whether it's your reproductive system area, whether it's all of your heart, your lungs, your vital organs, anywhere, it seems to be early in the mornings when the body goes through its repair process. And if it doesn't have enough reserves of nutrition and nutrient and all this, the electrolytes and everything, and it's trying to repair the heart, the body is still going to try to repair the heart, but if there is not enough reserves, guess what? You don't live. And so that's why heart attacks and strokes and people dying happen overnight or in their sleep or early in the morning, because that's when the body is going through its reparations. Okay? And so and then during the day for me, so I go through my reparations at night, which is what was happening. And this is the thing with my period and with my whole theory around reproduction. Before I did the Jilly juice, I was sick for about 2 weeks before. That was premenstrual dysphoric disorder, where my body was going into like a reproductive like crisis mode for 2 weeks, where I was bloated, I was hungry, I was irritable. All of my hormones were so messed up 2 weeks prior. And then on my period, I felt great. Now it's completely the opposite of being on J juice. I feel amazing before I even know I have my period. So I don't even know when I'm gonna get my period because there's no indicators. And when I do get my period, I'm fucking sick. Okay? And I'm thinking at some point that is going to disappear. But I had to go from 2 weeks before, where I'm all sick and all messed up 2 weeks before my PMDD, to then those symptoms of PMDD subsiding. And on the day of my period, I'm sick as a freaking dog. And I can feel the contractions. I can feel the pain in both sides, the ovaries, whatever. And then at some point, when my body finally repairs itself is when I don't feel any pain or I don't have my period. That's what I'm shooting for. So, because having your period is a sickness. Those are the same symptoms people get. It's a healing process. Those are the same symptoms that women get with all different diseases. Hey, Edith, which is basically evolution. But you're being attacked at the micro level to where your body is forced to try to evolve at every given moment, every single time it gets attacked. And so that's what the whole issue with the vaccines are, is the fact that your body's under attack by the antibodies, not by the adjuvants, but by the antibodies. Yeah, you may have, some heavy metal overload, but that's not difficult to deal with. I mean, it's not the adjuvants in the vaccines. It's the actual antibodies, the monoclonal antibodies, the MRC5, and all the different codes of the different tissues and DNA that is making up these antibodies, that is causing then people to have reactions. But why do they do this? How were you able to sell the vaccines a couple months back, Jilly? Because you were a total pro-vaxxer a couple months ago. And here's the thing, when you can program these vaccines to be very mild in how you react, because you're going to be exposed to somebody inevitably. So what vaccines are like a substitute of a person. So you're getting now an exposure to antibodies from a person, but it's in a vaccine versus a person. So what is the justification is the fact that mothers take all these different antibiotics and different prescription drugs. They don't allow their uterus to evolve. And so when they don't have the kind of adaptation, when the baby doesn't have the adaptation in the womb, then the medical holistic industry has to bring in some synthetic adaptation so the baby can survive without a whole deluge of antibodies destroying it. Okay, so the vaccines are kind of like being a synthetic exposure to the environment. It is your environment. But you can always adjust the environment to be very aggressive. Just no different out there. We know when you have a new virus out in the environment, you guys seen it, people were getting sick, people are sniffling, coughing. You see it in flu season, right? When you've been around someone who's sick and you get sick, you're like, oh, I was around Johnny, he was sick, now I'm sick. So you understand that it's communicable. So that severity of that specific sickness is based upon how sick the other person was that gave you those antibodies that then caused you to now react and evolve, right? Well, that's no different than the vaccine, but the vaccines can be adjusted for severity. You can have a very mild vaccine where you have absolutely no reaction, but you have a few antibodies to help you transition, and that's probably why the vaccines back then were able to help with the population boom. They weren't depopulating way back when, okay? But now you can adjust the vaccines to be more aggressive, to have more of the antibodies with different types of tissues that will then cause all of your system to be like, holy crap, we got to adjust to this new environment. It's like being, the vaccines relative to how strong or how weak they make them can be compared to how many people you get exposed to in your environment. So that's why they're saying, oh, social distancing, wear a mask, all this, don't go into crowds, because that's the same thing as a big crowd of people who've been exposed to a new virus is no different than a very aggressive vaccine. You put those two together, a person could die who doesn't have the adaptation ability. And when you are reproducing, your baby and you are now at a very weak point. Okay, and so the vaccines, the idea of the vaccines to help the transition, but what could be used for good way back when can also be used for evil. And that's where we have to be able to wrap our mind around the antibody deception. Okay, so taking the new COVID-19 vaccine is like going into a stadium full of people who've been exposed to COVID. That's why they're going, oh my God, you can't be, and that's why people are tripping out when they say, if you're not wearing a mask, you're trying to infect me. And it's become very political, and it's also, it makes sense, and then it doesn't make sense, because eventually, people are going to have a herd immunity. Now, they've been talking about herd immunity. Herd immunity does happen. It can happen naturally, and it can happen through a vaccine, but also if you don't have what it takes, then you're going to die no matter what. Because there is like different levels of immunity. There's like 1% immunity to like 100% immunity. 1% immunity where you're able to adapt without too much of a problem. 100% immunity is when you basically die. Because when you're 100% immune to your environment, you don't live in your environment. You're not safe. But the programming in the reality shows is, oh yeah, she has immunity, she's safe until the next round. Okay? So you understand the programming around immunity is even in the TV shows, the reality shows. Okay? And so you must understand the antibody deception. And so where the infiltration of the Illuminati, where they are doing a divide and conquer even in the holistic anti-vax world, is where they make you think it's the formaldehyde. I even see Neil Pascoe, bless his heart, anti-government in Australia, dealing with the Illuminati in Australia. But he doesn't understand the antibody deception. I don't know if it's just the fact that he just doesn't get it and he hasn't listened to my information and he's picking and choosing my information of what it is that he could use for his people. Or is he a controlled opposition? I have no idea. I have no idea if Luke Rudkowski understands the antibody deception. The fact that it's not about organic, it's not about the GMO. I mean, it is and it isn't, but it's not about all the stuff in the vaccine as far as the adjuvants. It's about the antibodies. Okay? But does Luke Rudkowski know, or is he controlled opposition? I don't know. Is the ignorance around antibodies that prevalent that, well, I guess it is, because even these anti-government, type of gurus out there that are trying to lead the charge against this revolution against Illuminati don't understand that they really should be fearing the antibody shedding from those that are vaccinated, as well as all of their remedies. They're trying to do the hydroxychloroquine. They're trying to do all their turmeric and honey and all these elderberry syrup and all this stuff, and it's going to make it worse. But how do you tell people who already built a platform on demonizing the adjuvants? It's not a really huge leap to transition from the adjuvants and the minerals in the vaccines and the prescription drugs and all the chemicals in the prescription drugs to the antibodies. It's not a huge leap. It's not that difficult transition. You don't have to give up your whole platform to go from the formaldehyde and thimerosal and mercury to then the antibody deception. It's not that huge a leap, but I don't think they understand that. And how do I explain it? Well, I've tried to explain it to everybody, but people they cherry pick my information. And so you're seeing, though, the truthers out there that are aging and degrading. There are truthers that have died out there fighting the good fight because they are focusing on the wrong things. But only you guys that have been following me for a while will get where I'm coming from. Okay, if you've gotten the vaccine, if they make it mandatory, like, I'm not going to volunteer for it until it becomes mandatory, to where it's contingent upon me moving around, taking care of business, make sure I still have a bank account, make sure that I can do my daily things. If I have to get a vaccine because of that, that's fine, I'll do it. I'd rather much do that than get tested and then play Russian roulette whether I'm going to get quarantined in a FEMA camp. But that's the thing, is these human cages, just so you know, these human cages and all of this, these letting the people out of jails, they're for the anti-vaxxers. That's why you have to rise above and understand the Jilly juice can release the excess, but it's not only releasing the excess antibodies in the COVID-19 vaccines, it's also healing your body. You now have to deal with all of your predispositions. It's not just for that specific vaccine. It's for every single vaccine you've ever taken, every single antibody you've ever accumulated, every single weakness that you have in your body, you now have to deal with the Jilly juice. It's like all or nothing. With the Jilly juice, it's all or nothing. Okay, you either live or you're gonna die, but that's no different than when you're out there fighting against the New World Order and fighting against the vaccine. It's either gonna live or die. You're gonna do the Jilly juice, or you fight against the system and they throw you in some kind of jail for being a public health liability. And because you don't want to feel pain, you've already let them justify throwing your ass in jail because you don't understand that yes, evolution is communicable, but how you characterize evolution is the difference. The Illuminati and Dr. Fauci and Fox and CNN have characterized evolution as bad. So it's very easy to say that, okay, you're communicable, you're evolving, which you really are. And yeah, it's obvious when you've been around kids I've been around kids that were sick, and I got sick back before I did the JJ. So we know that viruses exist. We know that people can be communicable. That's not the argument. The argument is, how do you characterize that communicability and what is it really? And so the whole thing with the Jilly juice is saying that viruses are just evolution. But you have to be able to build your body up to handle the evolution. That's the freaking difference. But no, the Dr. Fossey and Dr. Phil and all my naysayers have characterized viruses as the enemy. They've characterized salt as the enemy. They've characterized anything that brings up evolution or pain as the enemy. And so, yeah, you're not going to win as an anti-vaxxer fighting against the system. You're not going to win this argument at all, because it's not about it's about perception. Because no matter what, the science is going to be there. It's how you perceive the science and what your expectations are the difference. And so for all my Jilly juicers, I really respect you all. It's not going to be fun to do the vaccine if it ever comes down to it. It's not going to be fun. No, it's going to go against every single politics you've ever had for the last 10, 15, 20, however many years you've been an anti-vaxxer. But if you understand biochemistry, if you understand your environment, no matter what your environment, how how the antibodies and how the constituents and how your biochemistry gets configured, okay, the body still wants to live. And if you give it what it needs, you'll still have that footprint of that bioluminescence, luciferase, whatever. But it's not going to affect you adversely. If anything, it's going to be an upgrade and it's going to benefit you. But you have to understand that you have to deal with all of your other predispositions. So if you get the vaccine and now you have all these different, symptoms, okay, that's your body trying to heal, yes, from the new exposure. And you're doing the J juice and you have a lot of symptoms to deal with. That's your body trying to evolve. Because now you've been exposed to the bioluminescence, antibody. Now you have no choice but to evolve or devolve, no matter what. You have only two choices, life or death. If you understand Jilly Juice, no matter what, you'll be able to adapt to whatever environment, because that's why you have junk DNA. Your junk DNA isn't junk. It's basically like dark matter. It's info, it's information, it's data floating around waiting for the environment to change so you can adapt to it. Okay? And so, yeah, they are, they're doing bioengineering, yes, but they are doing geoengineering. Your environment's changing as we speak. And you have to be able to adapt to the changes in the environment. No matter what, you can't stop the New World Order. You can't stop your governor. You can't stop the presidents, whoever they are. You can't stop what's going on, but you can adapt to it and still thrive and live. Yeah, it's going to suck right now for however many years it's going to be happening. It's not going to be easy. I tell you that because the world that we used to know a couple years ago or a couple weeks ago or a couple months ago, it's not anymore. That world is done with. Okay? That world is done with. You must face reality. Now you have to adapt to the new environment, the new system. And there's no point in fighting against it. Because the more you fight it, the more it's going to become stronger. You have to not react to it, and you just got to do Jilly Juice, release the excess, choose your battles wisely. Your kids, you can't control what's going on with your kids. You can try to control with homeschool, but no matter what, the state's going to be inevitably involved with you. So you have to learn how to work with the state and still get your point across and still get what you want, which is basically keeping your kids alive without too many childhood diseases or major diseases, without them actually succumbing to the system. But some of you will not have that opportunity because your kids are in public school. They will not take to Jilly Juice nicely because they're going to have to heal, and they're already in contact with their Zoom teachers. They're already in contact with, like I said, there's legislation like the Babies Act where they're going to have freestanding birthing centers where you're going to have licensed professionals that deal with all the births in that community, and they're attached to the state and the reporting, and they're going to have people up your ass in your business telling you how to raise your child. Because we've been watching all over Facebook how mothers are abusing their kids. We're watching the police go to different homes where they're doing human trafficking. We're watching all of the different types of people that are harming children. And so we've asked for this because we are going, oh my God, look what that mother did. Oh my God, look what that father did. Oh my God, look what this person did. And so now we're going from one extreme where we have people abusing kids to now the other extreme where now we're going to control every single child and every single parent who has a child. So we're going from one extreme to the other. So that's why you can't win in this. So you have to know how to bring in Jilly Juice, understand the healing symptoms, and bring in Jilly Juice when you can, and make sure that your kid's biochemistry and your biochemistry is strong enough for the environment. Because yes, the government's going to do a one-size-fits-all. They can't determine your politics and how how you've balanced your body. That's not their job. You're right, Edith. That's not their job. Their job is to basically have everybody assimilate, and they deal with the lowest common denominator. The lowest common denominator is somebody, having a child and neglected it and killing it. They don't want that. But yes, you're seeing also high levels of government. People are doing that, and that's where the hypocrisy, that's where people are like, can't wrap their minds around how the government can be so caring about you and so controlling you to make sure that you take care of things, but yet they are abusing children and they are human trafficking, and you can't stop that either. So you really have to take care of you and yours and mind your own business. If you see something, say something. Most likely the people that you don't even know, see the people that I thought I can trust, my parents, are part of the fucking system. But not because they went to college and they're like, no, my mother's the architect of all of this. Not her, but who she's been affiliated with. The programs that she was involved is basically laying out this whole isolation, the masks, the desensitizing, the totally just taking the individuality away from the person. Okay, I'm telling you, every single thing that meme about that masks, about the whole untouchables, my mother exactly did that kind of shit to me. So, you don't know in your world who is really a part of the Illuminati. Like the Illuminati are like the new KKK, where they wear the robes. You don't know who is really part of it. You don't know. Okay? So you might as well just do your Jilly Juice. Say what you got. Don't really advertise it too much out there, but you know that Jilly Juice exists because I'm all over fucking Facebook and I have a book out, so you can choose. Okay? And you just do your stuff. If you can articulate Jilly Juice, great. If you can articulate about antibodies, great. If you want to help your friends and family, you have to learn how to talk about Jilly Juice in a way that's very intelligent. Not like, oh my God, the vaccines are poisons. Why are they poisons? Not because of formaldehyde, it's because the antibodies. The antibodies are being sold in the holistic world. So if you are a organic holistic person, you have to understand the organic holistic world is just as complicit as the allopathic with substantiating and cementing those antibodies as a way to heal the body. Oh, we want the cleaner vaccine. How is that any different? Antibodies are antibodies. It doesn't matter how they're paired with. An antibody is an antibody. What they're paired with will determine the programming and how it's going to affect different biochemistries. But antibodies are antibodies. Okay? And so really, speaking about Jilly Juice has to come from intelligence. And if you can't, then what you're doing is you're fighting an uphill battle. You're fighting against a brainwashing out there that is so pervasive, is so deep that even most of the truthers out there don't even know and understand what they're fighting against. They have absolutely no idea. Neil Pascoe has no idea what he's fighting against. Neither does Luke Rudkowski. Okay? And I'm assuming they're probably pretty, on the up and up, but you don't know who people are. I didn't know who my mother was until just recently. Okay? So if I don't even know who my own mother is, how do you know who these people are out there on Facebook with all of their political agendas? You don't know who people are. So you have to understand chemistry and biochemistry. Okay? And take care of you and yours, because that's all you have is you and yours. All right. Do the Jilly Juice. Get the book. Understand waterfalls. You will not die from salt. You will not die from waterfalls. You're going to feel pain, yes. Jilly Juice has the electrolytes, and you can eat food. Sugar is necessary. And you're going to have to feel pain. And if you don't want to feel pain, that's fine. Go see your doctor. But make sure that your doctor is not that aggressive, because if you're seeing your doctor and doing all your doctor regimes way much more than Jilly Juice, you're not going to survive this next environment, because they are ramping up the antibody accumulation. They're ramping up the severity of these antibodies. The vaccines are going to be a bit more aggressive. So will the prescription drugs that deal with COVID-19. When you're looking at the legislation over there in Congress, the HR 6666 and then all the bills that are part of that health subject matter, when you actually go into the Congress, 116th Congress, HR 6666, and you do like left hand side, it says health subjects or subjects, and you do like 8 health subjects. There is so much legislation regarding COVID-19 and how they're going to reconfigure society and reconfigure families and allocate money and allocate so much stuff, testing, military mobilization, restructuring, reconstruction. I'm telling you, there is a whole campaign. Yeah, Jason Shaver says you have to be a real lone wolf to get real depth. Otherwise, you're just peddling other people's perspectives. Absolutely, Jason. Absolutely. So that's why that's why I really don't collaborate with people, because most likely people that want to collaborate with me still have a buy-in into the system. That's why I don't really look at private messages. I don't do any kind of like, whatever. I just stick with this information, do the J juice. There is nothing in the holistic allopathic world, nothing that's going to really help you, okay, in the long run. This at this point goes against the whole system, everything. It goes against everything, to where even Amazon has their own freaking ebook to try to counter this. When Amazon has their own ebook under Goodreads, okay, when Amazon has their own ebook to counter this, I'm dealing with some crazy stuff. When Wikipedia is just regurgitating what happened back in, when BuzzFeed and Newsweek and Daily Mail and all that were talking about my stuff, trying to tie me to somebody's death. Do you realize what caused somebody that's in hospice to die? All the antibodies in his body. He was on prescription drugs too, and he had a whole history of drug use and other cancers and diseases. But the industry is going to try to scare you away from the salt, try to scare you away from life, because the whole point of the industry is the depopulation agenda. And I gotta go. Hold on. Hey, honey, hold on a second. Don't say anything. I'm going to get off Facebook Live. Hold on. End live. Hold on a second. Don't say anything yet, because I'm still online.